It's Casimir Engine Show podcast. It's all systems go tonight because Derby are playing Leeds in the play-off semi-finals. They're losing 1-0 in the first leg. Oh, sports chat. It's like 5 Live.
You're listening to Casimir.
That's me.
Hasn't that been done to death? Isn't that so 90s?
You think so?
Casimir Engine.
It's the Casimir engine. It's not KKK.
It's actually Nature of Wires as well. You're listening to the Casimir Engine Show podcast. Get in touch with us on Twitter at Casimir Podcast, Facebook at Casimir Podcast. God, you got a right lick on here, Kaz. www.casimirengine.com and get your ass to Debrec Studios, June the 1st. Nature of Wires, St. Lucifer, Veillon, 4th Engine. We've never heard you talk this fast before, Kaz.
Factual cause of 15 each.
the excellent We Kill All from Nature of Wires. Soon to be coming to Derby, D-E-R-B-Y, along with St. Lucifer, Vayon, Fourth Engine, and they've just announced a new act on the night as well. Damn. Oh hell, I'm not prepared enough. I'll post it all up on Twitter and on Facebook and all of that kind of shizola. Yeah, I'm not prepared enough tonight, am I? I'm all excited about the Rams. I'm all excited about the Debrec Studios gig, No Sleep Till Derby. I'm all excited about tonight because it's a different one. I've got loads to talk about. What was on the show tonight, Casimir? A woman in Greg's asked me today in Barnsley. I said, well, it's different tonight. I was going to talk about the podcast festival. I was going to talk about the big question, should music downloads be free? I was going to talk about me going into Nottingham on Sunday, going and seeing Danny Baker. And I was going to talk about my latest vinyl purchase from Analog Electronic Whatever, because it's square, it's clear, and it plays from the middle outwards. That'll have to be a YouTube clip. And I was going to do a live session from a gig that I went to at the Pavilion in Matlock Bath with John Gill, with Andy Page, Molly, loads of people down there. But I got the chance to interview Lloyd Price, who's worked with, well, he's got a band called Frixion, who I play a lot on here. He's done some work with Martin Degville with Sigue Sigue Sputniks. He's done everything. So I had a chance to catch up with him and have a chat with him at the weekend. And I seriously didn't want to miss the chance. So without further ado, let me introduce Lloyd Price. What are you going to talk to him about, Kaz? Well, music, holiday inns, staying away with work. He's ever such a nice bloke. I think you're going to enjoy our chat. You're listening to Casimir Engine Show podcast. As I say, you can get in touch with us on Twitter, on Facebook, at Casimir Podcast. How you doing?
Not too bad, yourself?
Yeah, not so bad. I'm just twiddling with a rubbish... there we go, that's better. Do you want to give it... I'm just setting my levels at the moment. Sounds professional,
okay.
But I promise you it's
cool.
not. But hey, that sounds brilliant. Hey, thanks ever so much for this. Really appreciate
no problem. No, I appreciate you getting in touch and asking me to do it. It's really cool. Thanks.
I've always put my professional voice on, which sounds no different to how I talk normally. So I give up on it. Professionalism and me don't go together at all. And hey, you spend a lot of time in holiday inns as well.
I certainly do. Too much time in holiday inns. One in particular at Haydock. I'm up there virtually every week. I'm back up there this week.
No way.
Yeah, I'm back up there Monday. I'm up there Monday night and Tuesday night. Yeah.
Oh right. I'm not in a holiday inn. I've got an overnight in a place called just outside Skipton in Yorkshire.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it's quite nice. It really is quite a nice hotel, which makes hell of a difference. So
you're just showing off.
Yeah, I am. I'll put it on Twitter, and you can do the sad room that you sit in. They're all the same. Doesn't matter where you go. They're all the same, aren't they?
I know. Yeah, terrible, isn't it?
Oh dear.
Going all around the country and they all look the same.
Well, the one I stay at is Glasgow Airport. Holiday Inn at Glasgow Airport, and it's a bit Alan Partridge because they know exactly what I'm going to order for my tea. You know what I mean?
Do you take your big plate?
Yeah, got my big plate with me. Yeah. So, and I always love it when you get an upgrade because you get a bottle of water and a Mars bar.
And a Mars bar. And you get the Galaxy chocolate, the hot chocolate.
Oh yeah, the sachet.
The hot chocolate sachet, yeah.
Instead of just tea and coffee.
That's it. They really go the extra mile, don't they?
Don't they just? And you have to stand on that red carpet when you check in as well. I love it.
Oh, brilliant.
I tell you what, Herbie the studio dog's just arrived, so I'm just going to kick him out because he'll start biting my feet in a minute and it will just all go wrong. Just give me just 2 seconds,
enough.
I'll just kick him out. Just 1 sec.
Not a problem.
Herbs, you've got to go.
Let's have just one last dance. We can make it last forever. 'Cause you've got your way and I've got mine.
love him to bits, but he bites like a demon sometimes because he's only one. So,
all right.
Didn't we all at that age, I suppose? Yeah. So, okay. Lloyd Price of the Frixion, welcome to the Casimir Engine Show.
Thank you very much. Nice to be on. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks ever so much for doing this. I've got a list of questions. I always say that to everybody who comes on. So I've got a list of questions, and I'm going to follow. Where are we talking to you now?
Well, I'm at home at the moment. I'm just in the studio. I was just putting some stuff together, actually. So I'm down in Essex.
Oh, okay.
About 35 miles away from London, out to the east. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okie dokie. I'll go to a holiday down there as well. Oh dear,
you're doing the tour, aren't you?
Yeah. We'll just do Holiday Inn chat, shall we? You would just do that. So. Whereabouts did you grow up? Are you Essex born and bred?
I am Essex born and bred, I'm afraid. Yeah, I grew up in a little place called Canvey Island, which is actually an island in the Thames estuary.
Yeah.
I like to call it the jewel of the Thames. Yeah, so it's quite a nice place growing up, but I've always been an Essex boy, I'm afraid, so sorry,
there's some good music from Canvey Island, wasn't there? Is it Dr.
Well,
Feelgood?
yeah, Dr. Feelgood.
Yeah, it was all that pub rock thing, wasn't it?
Exactly. You know, they do tours on the island, showing where the band played and where they grew up and all sorts of business. Yeah, you get lots of people from all over the world going down to the island and having this tour. Yeah, it's quite interesting, actually.
Fantastic. You've got to do that. You've got to YouTube that one, haven't you? You've got to go on a Dr. Feelgood tour. But
exactly.
What was your first introduction to music? How did you get into the biz?
Well, you know, I'd always been interested in music. I grew up in a family that always had music playing. My mum and dad were into like ska music and, you know, 60s stuff, Stevie Wonder and all that sort of business. So I'd always had music around in the house. But I really started dabbling around with sort of keyboards and music production when I was still in school, probably around the age of 13 or 14. I bought a keyboard and was doing silly tunes on that. And it just went on from there. And as I got older, joined a few sort of electronic bands, played a bit of bass guitar as well. But yeah, I think the main sort of thing that got me into the sort of business properly or doing music, taking more time over it, was I started doing some mashup mixes, like sort of bringing two tracks together. Yeah. So and just creating something new. So I did this thing where it was Sigue Sigue Sputnik and Pink mixed together, and I just put it up on the internet. And Martin Degville from Sigue Sigue Sputnik actually got in touch with me and asked me if I wanted to do some stuff with him. So that's how I sort of started treating it a bit more. I was a bit more serious about it after that, which was a great introduction into it. Yeah, it's really good.
How long ago was this when you got in touch with Degville?
I think that was probably around 2010. I think that was.
Okay.
So yeah, he heard this mashup mix I did, and then we re-recorded. Well, it seems like a silly idea now. We re-recorded the first Sputnik album, Flaunt It, in a more electronic style. So we did that, and then we did some more sort of albums, sort of regurgitating the older stuff, bringing it up to date. But then I think the best thing we ever did, and where I've sort of kind of left it, was we produced a whole new album called Electronic DNA. Yeah. I produced the whole thing, and it was all brand new tracks. And that is actually a pretty good album. I really enjoy that one still. That's pretty good. So.
Nothing
What's it like? Were you a fan as a youngster then?
Well, this is the thing. Yeah, this is the thing. We were in school. They were, when I was about 15. It was 1986. Give my age away now. 1986. I was a 15-year-old boy in school. I'd kind of missed the punk thing. I'd missed Sex Pistols and all that. And these sort of flew onto the scene, and they were a bit brash and a bit dobby, and and quite interested in the time of Wham and Spandau Ballet and Stock Aitken and Waltman stuff. They were a little bit out there and a bit different to a 15-year-old kid anyway. So, yeah, we kind of liked that. And then, funnily enough, my friend who I went to school with, he ended up running the fan club for them. So we ended up going to gigs and backstage and all this. So, yeah, we'd been fans since day one, really. So it was interesting that I actually ended up working with a guy. It was pretty cool.
Is it good working with somebody that you've almost hero worshipped, or is it a bit scary?
Bit scary at the start, but
he looks a scary guy, doesn't he? Let's face facts.
he does look a scary guy when he goes on stage, but he's a down. Well, he's not down to earth. He's a pretty crazy guy anyway. But he doesn't go out with a massive hair up and all the high heels on. But he's a character. Let's put it that way. But good fun to work with.
Brilliant stuff. So you said that you bought synthesizers when you were quite young, then in your teenage years. A keyboard, anyway.
Yeah, I bought this little Casio, I think it was an SK200 sampling keyboard, and it was battery operated. It was really, really cheap and nasty, but it was battery operated. It had speakers on the side of it. Yeah. And I remember coming back on the train from, I'd gone into Southend and bought it at this shop and stuck some batteries in it. We were messing around on the train, sampling stuff on the train and making silly noises all the way home, basically. But yeah, that was about the age of 13, I think it was. And then I got a bit more interested in it after that because it kind of sparked an interest, and I ended up sort of accumulating more kit over the years.
Why electronic? Oh, sorry.
So at one point, I had to move my bed out of my bedroom because my room was so full of kit. It was crazy.
And why not? What would you rather have, a bed or an Ovation or something like that, or a Moog? There's no choice in it, is there, really?
Exactly. Who needs sleep?
Tell me, why didn't you go down the rock route or the blues route then? Why electronic music?
Okay. I think because at the time when I was growing up, as I say, I'd grown up with a lot of ska stuff and rock stuff.
You mentioned Stevie Wonder as well.
Stevie Wonder, which I love. I love all that sort of soul and funk stuff. That's great. But at the time when I was kind of getting more interested in, because I'd always grown up with that when I was 5, 6, 7, and then by the time you kind of hit your early teens, it was Gary Newman was out. And that was quite different. Yeah. And then you hear Kraftwerk around and you think, oh, this is completely, it was so different and so new then. As a young kid, you kind of latch on to, that well, I did at least. I latched onto it because it was so different and out of this world sort of thing. So that's what captured my imagination and the reason why I went down that route, because it was so interesting at that point in time. It had not been heard before. Mm-hmm. Today you hear a lot of electronic music. It's all over the place. The charts are full of bands and acts that use synthesizers, but back in the day it was pretty rare and it was, it's pretty unknown. So that's what sparked the imagination, and that's why I was drawn to that side of music.
Throw ecstasies in the ocean deep, right in the sand when the world's asleep. In the deep of the night, hold tight. Lift to the stars, shine apart in the dark. To the end of the night, from dusk till dawn. Carry on.
You say Gary Newman, Kraftwerk. Was it Depeche Mode? Because they're from your neck of the woods, aren't they? Basildon or somewhere over that way?
Well, this is it. Yeah. Depeche Mode lived about probably 8 or 9 miles away from me.
Yeah.
My cousin lived over in Basildon, so yeah, there was a thing going on locally as well. You had Depeche Mode playing in local clubs, and you might walk down Basildon High Street and see them walking down the high street, sort of thing. So
yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of interest in that as well, because there was this local thing going on as well. So it's a good point you raise, actually. There was this local interest as well, because this new band had just popped up out of nowhere, playing synthesizers, like 4 guys, 3 of them were playing synthesizers. So there was that angle as well. Yeah, that's a good point.
Who was the first band that you saw who were playing the same music, or the music that you liked?
The first band I ever saw, you know what, when I started going to gigs, the first band I probably saw was Sigue Sigue Sputnik, I think.
Really?
Playing the sort of thing I like. Yeah, I think probably...
It's a hell of a start.
Yeah, that was a bit different, yeah, wild. And then, I don't know, I like Prince as well, so I went to see Prince. But I didn't actually see any of the big electronic bands until probably early 90s, when Depeche Mode were doing the Songs of Faith and Devotion tour with tracks like I Feel You and We're Walking in My Shoes. No, I lie. I saw them on the Violator tour. Sorry, scrap that. Yeah. I saw them on the Violator tour when they were doing Personal Jesus and all that sort of thing. That was the first time I'd seen a proper full electronic band doing their thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not the... I don't think we're the same. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was trying to figure out whether we were the same vintage or not. But I think I'm probably a bit older than you. I managed to see Human League and people like that on before the girls even. It was really going back. So I don't suppose we're the same age then, are we?
No, see, that would have been probably about 78, wouldn't it?
Yeah, 78, 79, yeah. Yeah,
so I would have been kind of 7 or 8 years old.
All right,
then.
yeah, leave it.
Sorry, mate. Not rubbing it in or anything, but a little bit too young for that at that stage.
Was it a Sigue Sigue Sputnik album that you bought when you first bought your first music?
My first music, okay, the first album I ever bought was Musical Youth. And the first single I ever bought was Fantastic Day by, is it Nick Haywood?
I tell you what we can do, with editing software, I can take out Musical Youth and put Nick Cave in if you want, or something like that.
I really
Joy
don't mind.
Division.
No, that's fine. See, I've got such a great pedigree behind me, haven't I?
You really have. I'll never listen to a Frixion track ever again in the same way.
I know, you'll think, my God, where did this come from?
Pass the Dutchie from the left-hand side. Maybe that could be a cover version for you.
Maybe in the future I'll try to get Gene singing that one. That'd be cool. Yeah,
mash that one up with Sigue Sigue Sputnik. That'd be a classic.
It would be fun.
Oh dear. You've just mentioned Gene.
Yep.
I've seen some bits and pieces on the internet of how you met, but just explain to us how you met, because again, this is all about social media and stuff like that. So
very much. Yeah.
How did you get together?
Yeah, a friend of mine had done a track with her, and I really liked it. And I asked him what her name was and all this sort of business, and he told me, and I thought it'd be really interesting to do something with her one day. So I friended her on Facebook, and she accepted. And then that was probably it for a while. Mm-hmm. And I was working with a band called Massive Ego at the time while I was kind of doing some side stuff as well, but I was working with Massive Ego. But I'd friended Gene, and I was putting demos together for Massive Ego, and I had this one particular thing in mind, which was sitting around. But what really happened was, it was the day that Prince died. I'm a massive Prince fan,
yeah.
And I started posting up videos of tracks and all that sort of business. And then she loves Prince as well, so we started talking about our love of Prince and all this sort of business. And And then we got on to talking about music, and I said, look, I'm doing some demos that don't really fit what I'm doing with Massive Ego. Would you be interested in working on one with me? And she went, yeah, that'd be fine. So I sent her over this demo, and it was the first thing we ever worked on together. It turned out to be a track called From Dusk Till Dawn. Okay. It was our first single. So, it was really just through social media and really the passing of Prince that we kind of sort of connected and chatted away. So,
it's incredible. Yeah, social media can be so good for things like that, can't it? Do you get together then? Did you find out that she was just, sort of 10 miles down the road, or do you never ever meet? Do you do this all on the internet?
Right.
Or?
The issue that I have, and it hasn't really proved to be an issue, is that Gene lives in Berlin.
That's handy.
So she's not 10 minutes down the road.
It's not on the Circle Line then, is it really? So
no, it's certainly not. So we mainly work across the internet. I'll send her demos, and she'll write to those, and she'll send me the vocal tracks back, and I will mix them at my end again. So it's really backwards and forwards. And we probably did about 2 or 3 tracks like that before we ever met properly. I ended up going over to Berlin for I think it was only about 24 hours, but it was a Massive Ego album launch party over in Berlin. So I was going over there, and she'd sung on one of the Massive Ego tracks. So I invited her to come along, and that was the first time we'd ever met, actually. So we're probably on about 3 tracks before we even met.
Okay. And do you find, how does the partnership work? Are you purely, I've got a tune in my mind, I'm going to stick it out there, see what she thinks about, and then does she put vocals to it, or is it a combination between the two of you?
There's no hard and fast rules. Sometimes, as I say, the first track was I had a demo, I sent it over to her, she wrote the lyrics, and she sent them all back for me, all the vocal tracks. But then one time she had some demos sitting at her end, and it turned out to be a track called Heartbroke Disco. She virtually had that all written, and she sent me the rough demo that she'd put together, and I basically just built it up and replicated it in the software and the synths that I have, and that's how that one came to be about. So there's no hard and fast rule around it, really.
Okay. Where did the Frixion come from? What's the Frixion?
Well, Frixion used to be...
Oh, it's Frixion, sorry. I keep on getting band names so wrong.
Loads of people do that, don't worry about it.
Frixion.
But Frixion was a name that I used when I was doing some remixes. So even before joining Massive Ego, if you go search in their back catalogue, you'll find that there's a Frixion remix of some of their tracks.
Okay.
So I was doing remixes for them, and then they asked if I'd like to join the band. So... that's how that came to be. But that was my kind of solo thing that I used to do, just remixes under this name. Then I found out that there used to be a boy band called Frixion, so I had to change it to The Frixion.
Oh, okay.
So we got round that one then. So, but then, once Gene joined, that was when we sort of tinkered around with the name and all that sort of business. And it wasn't just a remixing outfit; it was like a proper partnership and putting proper music out now.
So you mentioned again that you've done remixes and stuff like that. Do you see yourself more as a producer, remixer, that side of it, or a writer of more original music? Where do you sit? Where would you prefer to sit on that side? I do enjoy the production side of things, getting things spot on and all that. Mm-hmm. But I really... it's strange. I wouldn't class myself as a remixer. I don't do that many remixes. I've done a few lately, but not that many. I think more of a producer, working on production and stuff like that. Yeah. But saying that, I will write the backing tracks sometimes, write the melodies, and Gene will write the lyrics to it and stuff like that. But so, again, I'm a bit of a strange character, really, I think, in that kind of sort of jump across different roles, if you like. Yeah. But it's very, it keeps it interesting not to sort of pigeonhole yourself in one area. Yeah. Doing remixes, doing some production, writing, it's a nice way of keeping it interesting. When I was a kid, it was Slade, Mud, The Sweet, T-Rex, David Bowie. You kind of only had a number of bands that were you would know of. Yeah. now I mean, I get so much stuff sent through. I can't keep up. There is so much music out there. There's a massive amount of music available through analog trash. I mean, it's phenomenal. How on earth do you stand out these days as being? And where do you put your music to, so the masses can hear it? How can you get it out there?
It's a great point that you've raised there. You know, similar when I was growing up, there wasn't that many artists around. You knew who was going to be in the charts from one month to the next, really. And today, it is a massive task to try and get seen. And I think the only way that you can stand out is by writing. I think it still boils down to the basics. Is writing a good song, writing a good tune, and a vocal that is interesting to listen to. There is a lot of people who are just producing stuff in their back bedroom. I'm not going to take anything away from those guys, but there's not a lot of standout stuff from those people. So it's not just, there's a million house tunes and trance tunes out there somewhere, but a lot of the boxes sound exactly the same that they're using, and you've got to go another level to make it interesting. And I still think that is a vocalist and a melody. You can't get away from that. So that's how how I feel that you stand out. Someone might think completely different. They might think, it's the kick drum. The sound of the kick drum, bang, bang, bang. But I don't think that, because I've kind of done those things before, like the 4 on the floor, housey, trancey tracks. And they do become, you go to a club and it's all pretty much the same, really, a lot of the time. So I still think it's things like a good vocal, a good lyricist, and getting it out there and seen. Again, that is really tricky now because everybody has so many different channels that they can go down and try and find music. And when you get to something like Spotify, it's just crammed with so much music. It's just like you take your pick and run with it. But I still listen to a lot of the online radio shows like yours, and there's other radio shows out there, stations that I listen to. They're not the radio ones. They're not the Heart FM or whatever it is. I'm not interested in that more mainstream stuff. I do like to go delve in. I think that's when you find the good stuff, that's when you go delve in. So, if someone wants to find interesting stuff, get away from the main radio stations and just go delving online and find radio stations that appeal to you. I think that's probably the best way to do it these days.
But it only took just a second
we still going back to stuff that's already been made? Are we just regurgitating music that was made in the 80s? Then will the next thing be Britpop? Then are we just going circle after circle with music, or is it, are you finding new stuff?
Not so much lately. I don't find a lot of stuff that really captures my imagination lately, and I do think to some extent there's a lot of going around in circles. A lot of the stuff that I hear on some of the radio stations, it does sound like they've been inspired by the 80s. Yes. I know that we use synthesizers a lot, and sometimes we do get compared to certain artists. And maybe because I grew up in that era, I am kind of inspired by that, and in a deeper, sort of somewhere deep, and something triggers a melody or something like that, and I'll think, oh, well, that sounds good, and then I think about it, I think, oh, actually, that sounds like blah, 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 that was released in 86 or something like that. Yeah. But, I do think it goes in cycles, and there isn't so much these days that inspires and is that different. There have been certain things for me as an electronic artist that have been interesting, and back in sort of 87, 88 you had the acid house scene and all that sort of business, and that was completely different from say 2 or 3 years before that. It was all just very standard kind of music, and then that just flew out of nowhere. Then you had drum and bass, which I wasn't a massive fan of, to be honest with you, but it did spawn bands like The Prodigy, who then turned out to be this monster of a band that kind of slowed it down a bit, went a bit hip-hop and that sort of business, which I'm not a massive fan of hip-hop, but they took on elements of drum and bass, hip-hop, rock, electronics, and they made that their own. So that was interesting as well. Now, maybe, I don't see that so much. There was, what was it, sort of, not drum and bass, I can't remember, breakbeat, that was pretty cool. Things like grime, though, I'm not really into that sort of stuff. So for me, as a 40-something-year-old, there's not that much that really, I think, wow, never seen that before, never heard that before now. You know?
I mean,
we probably will see Britpop again, I would imagine.
Well, thinking about it, I mean, there's this thing with the synth wave stuff where everybody's back to Ferris Bueller and those kind of 80s movies and all that kind of thing. But the Rolling Stones started by copying John Lee Hooker and all that stuff, back in the old blues stuff and things like that. So you've got to get inspiration from somewhere, and if you're of an age,
everybody gets their inspiration from somewhere, don't they?
If you're of an age, it's going to be the 80s, isn't it?
That's it. You've got all these 20-year-old kids now, and they look back and they look at these 80s films like Top Gun, Ferris Bueller and all that, and they listen to the soundtracks of Berlin, like the band Berlin and all that sort of business, and they really like those sounds. So I did go to this festival, I can't remember what it was called now, but it was last summer actually, and there were all these kids playing this very 80s inspired stuff, but it was so popular, it was crowded. I've never seen sort of a synth festival, I've been to a few of those now, a synth festival so packed out, and people were really up for it and enjoying it, it was really interesting to see. Actually, you don't see that much in the UK, sort of interest in synth music these days.
What's the future for the Frixion? I got it right that time, didn't I?
You did, yeah, well done. So, as you pointed out, you played some Analog Trash stuff, and we did sign to Analog Trash last year. We went on a tour with a band called Vion, who are on Analog Trash, and Nature of Wires, they're on Analog Trash, and we also went out with Rodney Cromwell as well, who's on Happy Robot Records. Yes. So there was we called this Own From Home tour. And off of the back of that, we joined Analog Trash. They signed us through watching us every night and putting up with our music. But ongoing, we are writing at the moment. I think we might be doing some shows later on in the year as well. Okay. But at the moment, we're kind of just getting some new stuff together, and we've started working with a guy who's based up in Liverpool, who's doing some mixing for us as well, and I think he's doing a bit of post-production stuff for us as well. Yeah. So for me personally, I've got to find a way. I never want to set back or sit back on my laurels and just think, right, this is another one, churn it out.
Mm-hmm.
I want to keep it interesting, so I want to start working with other people. And as I say, we've met this guy, and he's going to be starting doing some mixing for us, and hopefully that will lead onto other things as well. I do want to get the album finished. We've got a load of tracks that we have released already, but I'm kind of looking at those now, thinking, you know what, we could probably do some of those a little better. So I might take some of those and kind of start from the ground up again and do them a little better, you know, using not just tracks we've released already, but new tracks as well. But my aim is to get an album out on Analog Trash at some point. But Gene's still writing stuff. I keep on sending demos over to her. But it's really just about getting the album out eventually, I think, for us at the moment.
And what format can we expect? Because I bought a single today. I couldn't believe it.
Actually, I saw it on social media. I think you put it on Twitter or something.
Square.
That square 7-inch.
Isn't that cool?
That plays from the inside out.
Is that not the coolest thing?
That was just
I'll
like,
never play
love
it.
that.
I'll never play it. But no, strange enough, I'm thinking of putting it on just to see if it might not even work. I don't know. But
you've been duped.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, no, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, it's absolutely stunning thing. Yeah, but
it looked really cool.
Have you got any ambitions to stick anything out on vinyl or cassette? I collect cassettes. Again, I just like cassettes. I love them.
I love cassettes, and we did release one last year. We had a single called Magic, and we released a 4-track tape.
Yeah,
and it had our single Magic, it had a previous single Deceiver Believer. We did a cover of Howard Jones' What Is Love, that was on there.
Yeah, and
a remix, which was pretty cool as well. So yes, we've released a cassette already, but I'm a massive vinyl fan now. I've started buying vinyl again. So my aim is to release on vinyl. It will be probably on CD as well, and obviously on digital. But you know, I would love to hold my own vinyl album in my hand with the sleeves are just so much better than a CD. You open a CD up and it's like, oh, right. But you pick up a piece of vinyl in its sleeve, you open up the liner notes and all this, and it's just a completely different experience. I love it. And,
you mentioned Stevie Wonder earlier. I bought Songs in the Key of Life on vinyl from a second-hand shop. And I mean, the cover is just amazing. It's got the booklet with it and everything. It's just gorgeous thing. And like you say, it's just that tactile thing. Might never play, might never play these things, but they're almost works of art, aren't they? So
well, I got a new one through this morning through the post. I got Howard Jones's new album, Transform. And I bought it on the vinyl. He signed the vinyl for me, which is really cool. Or he signed the sleeve for me. But you pull out the inner sleeve and it's got all the lyrics there and it's got liner notes in there. It's just so much of a more interesting experience. I prefer it so much to CD or just digital is pretty soulless, isn't it? I know it's got its pluses where it's so accessible. You can stick Spotify on in the car and listen to a million albums if you wanted to, just through your phone and whatever. But I do like to sit down, get the vinyl out, pop it on there, and it's a nice experience still. It's what I grew up with.
Now you've said it, you've got to do it. You do realise that.
Exactly, I know.
People will bombard you now. When's the album coming out and when can I get it on orange vinyl or something like that? So.
Well, this is the great thing because Analog Trash have just released, I think, an album, and I actually got it downstairs by St. Lucifer, their new album. They released it on red vinyl.
Yeah. And
when that came through the door, it was like, yes, these guys are on the same record label as me. They've done it. They've kind of trodden the path now. Yeah. I know that we can do it. So when we do it, it's there. It's someone's done it already. It's a channel through, and we can start releasing vinyl when we're ready to go.
But we're looking forward to the album then. You on tour with new material later this year, and can I just say again, thanks so much for doing this for us.
Oh, it's brilliant. Thank you very much for inviting me on. It's been really, really great to speak to you.
And get upgraded to platinum holiday inn card. You don't know what you're going to get then. You might get a cup of soup in the corner of the room or something like that.
You can only hope, can't you?
Hey, enjoy Monday night in Haydock.
Will do. Thank you very much.
Hey, take care. Cheers. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot.
There you go. That was fantastic, Lloyd Price. You've been listening to Casimir Engine Show podcast. I'll be back next week. Do Do you know, I've got guests lined up. They're all the way down the road. They're still waiting outside to have a chat with us. I'll get back to you with some live music next week.
Casimir engine, reliably mediocre.